Welcome to the Building the Cooperative Classroom podcast, the official podcast of the Johnson & Johnson Cooperative Learning Institute. Welcome to the Building the Cooperative Classroom podcast. My name is Adam Rubicek. With me, as always, is Derrick Swistak.
Hey.
And Aaron Fleming.
Oye, buenos dias.
This is our third week of talking about structured academic controversy. In our first week, we talked a little bit about the value of conflict. Last week, we talked a little bit about the structure of what you see as the students are engaging in this problem-solving debate. But today, I thought we would spend some time examining what makes a good structured academic controversy. What are some topics that we've used in our classrooms that we would find valuable?
So we have talked about, and I think the thing that I like about chemistry is that it can stretch far and wide, and science in general. And you can talk about, like, okay, is nuclear power, is that a good thing or a bad thing? People take very different sides on that. And there isn't a clear-cut answer per se, because we do have an energy crisis in this country and in this world. And nuclear seems to solve some problems, but does it create more problems than it solves? So there isn't a right answer or a wrong answer to that one. And people have debated it quite a bit. We think we've come to some consensus, and then all of a sudden another election cycle goes through and we come to a different consensus, or we realize, like, oh, we're going to get rid of that nuclear power plant, and what will we replace it with? 10 natural gas fields. Is that a good plan? Is that a bad plan? Having kids kind of look at that issue and see just how complex it is. And again, going through and my favorite, the chasm of the unknown. There's a lot of unknowns here, and we got a lot of nuclear waste that we don't really know what to do with. All of those things have to be accounted for, and that's one of my favorites.
Well, and I think you all mentioned last time, maybe it was you, Derrick. You talked about some of the, I guess, the warm-up type activities that you can do. And I know one of the famous ones in the actual textbook from the Johnsons talks about Peter Pan. And, you have one side, is it better to grow old, or is it better to stay young forever? And again, you could be on either side of that argument, but other things you could do, just some practice ones. Is it better for teachers to give homework or not give homework, and have students debate that? Should we have summers off? Should we go through school all year with some more frequent breaks? These are all things we could do. We could do my favorite, which is, why is Star Wars way better than Star Trek or Marvel? But I mean, that's not really fair, because we all know that it's Star Wars is the answer, and because it's just way better. So just going to leave that one there.
In my biology classroom, the controversies that I found that worked the best were those that were closely related to the content, but still somewhat rooted in current events. And in biology, we saw this a lot. So I talked about the animal experimentation controversy that I did a couple weeks ago, but some other things that I've done, looking at overpopulation amongst humans, and should we put in population controls amongst people so that we don't overcrowd the planet? One thing we looked at, health and dieting, when we were talking about our macromolecules unit, and is it healthy to eliminate carbohydrates from one's diet? Is this a responsible method of weight loss? This is something that has been kind of on the forefront with different diet fads over the years. We could look at high protein, low fat, all those different things. Should scientists and laboratories be allowed to copyright the DNA of genetically modified organisms? Is it possible for a corporation to own the DNA of an organization? Got some really heated debates among students here, and something that they had no background on. I mean, this is really complex legal precedents that are being set. The students really got to dig in, and because they had an understanding of the science behind it, their opinions and their ideas were just as valid as some of the legal scholars out there. So it's really fun to get the students really looking at the world around them using the lens of basic raw science that we were learning in the classroom.
And I will say, just like Aaron said, I think that some of that simple stuff of like, do you want to live in the electron cloud or do you want to live inside the nucleus? I think Aaron or Adam said that. Do you want to be a molecule or do you want to be an atom? And like having kids kind of just do a quick controversy, but kind of run through the steps. So, getting them with their partners to try to talk through their side of it. I'd rather be an atom. Okay. We'd rather be a molecule. Okay. We're going to talk it through. Okay. We're going to have that, we're going to state our opinion. We're going to take notes. Oh, and then we're going to flip sides, and then so that it's a quick little thing, but it is still, right there at the controversial level. I think, I think parts of speech is probably a pretty good one and a pretty not so difficult one for kids to get into. Would you rather be a noun or a verb? I'm going to embarrass myself with my lack of knowledge of verb conjugation. Would you rather be kind of thing? My wife has mentioned that she did one where she was talking about should there be feminine versus masculine forms of articles, I guess is probably what they're the words, in the world nowadays. When we don't have those, genderfied kinds of things. But that was pretty progressive and seemingly innocuous, but while at the same time, conveying an understanding of the world that our kids live in right now too.
There are so many things you can do, right? If I just give you a couple and get you thinking about it, my favorite one that we ever did years ago, there was I believe it was a mother and son who fled from Cuba on a raft. Unfortunately, on the trip, the mother perished. And then there was a big argument about should the boy go to live with relatives in the United States or go back home to Cuba with the father. That was an intense one. It was a really intense debate. And of course, there's no right or wrong answer there, but really, really a good one to help kind of sort through some emotion too. But again, you have to have a lot of trust built to be able to have those. Even some things like, should we give things like driver's license examinations in other languages, to get kids to think about, more of a global perspective with languages, or should we expect people to speak English or take tests in English, those kinds of things. So there's so much out there that we can really get kids to dig into, work through all of those social skills. And, I think we've said it so many times, when you get kids, when you see that light bulb go on where they really see that opposing viewpoint really has some validity to it, that's enough to give me pause and say, okay, so much that I came in here with was really not accurate, or at least it's softened it, and I can understand why someone would have that other perspective. It's those aha moments that really, you really will remember for the rest of your teaching career.
And it's teaching students to disagree without being disagreeable. David Johnson, and this is like the 17th time we've quoted him in the last 3 episodes, but I think this was part of cooperative learning he was most passionate about. If you listen to his interview, he was really working with people that had serious disagreements. He wanted people not to be prejudiced, and he was going into some of the most fraught situations and trying to get people to listen to each other. But he tells a story, I think it was a Morton Deutsch story, I'm probably getting it way wrong, but an article was published and another professor stormed into his office and started screaming, how can you possibly say these things? This is so wrong, and this paper is nonsense. And the professor kept his cool and sat there and says, well, tell me why you think that, and just talked him off the ledge. And this was somebody that was so passionate about an issue. And he said, well, if he has passion, that means he cares, which means that we can come to an understanding. If he wasn't angry, if he just said, no, this is a terrible paper, and walked away, well, without any passion, he couldn't have engaged in that discussion. So if we can turn that passion and sometimes it comes out as anger, but if we can teach students to channel it in the right way, that it really is a desire to be understood and to understand the opposing viewpoint. And
I think it's a matter then of wanting to hear the opposing viewpoint too, right? It's not, it's really just do we get people to a place where they don't want to be stuck in their own little world, and they want to hear what other people think, and they want to hear learned thoughts, and they want to express learned thoughts. We can get kids to that place. We're leaving them behind with a great world here.
And with that, I think we can wrap up our mini session on structured academic controversy. Again, one of the most fun parts of cooperative learning to implement in the classroom, kind of an aspirational piece for those just getting into it. But you can start small. Just start with little ways to get your students to talk to each other and engage. They can be silly, they can be nonsensical, they can be just something rooted in your content, rooted in the topic at hand. But once you teach students how to, like I said, disagree without being disagreeable, you can take them anywhere. With that, we'll catch you next week. And until then,
let's cooperate.
Thank you for listening to the Building the Cooperative Classroom podcast, the official podcast of the Johnson & Johnson Cooperative Learning Institute. Please check out the show notes for all relevant links, including a link to our Twitter account and the Cooperative Learning Institute webpage. This podcast is copyrighted under the Creative Commons license, copyright 2021. Theme music courtesy of Jimmy Ryan.